Hello, math learners. Our video today is about the mathematical model of the Pearson R correlation coefficient. This is solving for the correlation coefficient using Microsoft Excel. What is correlation? Correlation is a statistical measure that expresses the extent to which two variables are related. When we talk about two variables, we mean it is numerical variable. It can either be interval or continuous. So, hindi natin pinag-uusapan dito yung relationship ng categorical, like, kunyari, yung male at female. No, we're not talking about that. So, pwedeng scores, dalawang scores. Kunyari, yung grade niya noong high school, and we want to see if it has a direct relationship, yung magiging grade niya nung college. So, those are examples ng merong relationship or ginagawaan ng correlation test or analysis. Okay, so two variables that are both numerical. It is a common tool for describing simple relationship without making a statement about cause and effect. So, dito sa picture natin dito, these are visualization of correlation na ginagawa. And we are going to discuss further later on sa mga susunod na slides. So we will have something familiar, yung algebra-wise na discussion. So let's take a look on a typical algebra equation that we are familiar with to illustrate ko ano yung correlation. So most of the time we have this dunong second year high school. So y is equal to x plus 5. Analyzing this, yung x natin, ito yung tinatawag natin na independent variable. X can take any value that we can assign to it. And ang mangyayari, anytime na magkaroon tayo ng changes dun sa x, magkakaroon din ng changes sa y. So, yun yung example ng correlations. So, it says here that an assigned value of x will generate corresponding value for y. Like, x equals 0 generates y equals 5. So, magka-partner sila. If x is 0, then y equals 5. Another one is when x is equal to 1, it generates y is equal to 6. So if we are going to change the value of x into 1, we will get y is equal to 6. Same thing with x is equal to 2. It generates y is equal to 7. And when x is equal to 3, it generates y is equal to 8 and so on. Take note, partner. So for every value of x, there is a value of y. So what we have then are solutions for the equation y is equal to x plus 5 in the form of ordered pairs. Changes in value of x also changes the value of y. Okay? So, yun lang yung isang very simple illustration kung paano nagkakaroon ng correlation yung independent at saka dependent variable. Ngayon, linear statistical correlation is almost the same as the algebraic equation mentioned before. But in correlation analysis, we start with the ordered pair. So, yun yung raw data na sinasabi natin. Hindi tayo magsisimula dun sa equation muna. Wala pang equation because we don't know if there is actually a relationship between x and y. That's why gumagawa tayo ng ganitong analysis because we want to discover if there is actually a relationship between x and y. So, we start always with the value ng x at saka yung value ng y. Independent and dependent variable. Then we determine if the changes in the value of x affects the value of y. And then we determine the equation. So, pabalik siya. So, sa algebra, we start with the equation and then we assign values for x and then we get the values of y. Dito naman, we already have the values of x and y and then we want to determine if there is a corresponding equation that would give us a correlation between the two variables. So, this one is actually visualization ng relationship or value ng x at saka value ng y. X is latitude. Okay? Yung height ng kinatitirahan niya. Okay? So, meron kasing tao na nakatira sa may bulubundukin, meron naman dun sa kapatagan. And then, meron ding dito sa y value or dependent ay yung mortality or deaths per 10 million. Ilan yung mga namamatay per 10 million of population. This one is about the skin cancer mortality versus state latitude. correlation. So, ayan yung visualization niya. Now, in correlation analysis, we usually start with graphing the data using a scatter plot or scatter diagram. Yun ang tawag natin. So, ayun yung tawag dito sa visualization na ito. Now, to check visually if there is some sort of trend in the changes of values of x and y variables. Although, 'di ba, visual interpretation is good. Nakikita natin, wow, parang downward yung trend, 'di ba? It is much accurate to do computations to actually check for correlation. To illustrate further yung correlation analysis, we have here a sample data taken from the book Statistics for Psychology, 6th edition by Arthur Aaron. Sabi dito, a researcher is studying the relationship of sleep sa mood the next day. So, 2 questions were asked to 6 students. 6 students lang yung inanalyze or inilagay dito kasi this is just a simple illustration of correlation analysis. So, this is not like thesis wherein kailangan ng 300 plus to 400 na sample size. So, ano lang to, for illustration purposes. So, ito yung question. How many hours of sleep do you have last night? So, ang gagawin nung estudyante, sasagot siya dito ng discrete. Okay, ang category ng uri ng numbers na isasagot niya ay discrete. So, pwedeng 1, pwedeng 2, pwedeng 3, pwede ding 0 kung hindi siya natulog. Okay, so yan. Yun yung isasagot niya. So, any numbers from that. Depende dun sa haba ng o bilang ng oras na itinulog niya. Now, dito naman sa number 2, yung kaibahan niya is how do you feel right now in the scale of 0 to 8? This one is, ang tawag dito ay, although discrete pa rin yung magiging sagot niya, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ang tawag natin dito ay 9-point hedonic scale. Wherein this is categorized as ordinal variable kasi merong pinaka hindi masaya papunta dun sa 8 na pinaka masaya. Dito, hindi siya tinatawag na ordinal kasi pangkaraniwang numerical variable. Kahit na anong bilang pwede mong ilagay, depende dun sa kung gaano talaga kahaba yung tulog mo o tulog ng estudyante. So, ito yung pinaka-summary dun nung sinagot ng 6 na estudyante. The R's slept last night at saka yung kanyang happy mood, okay? Yung rate ng kanyang happy mood. So, itong una, so take note kaya nga sinasabi natin sa correlation may partner eh. So, itong isang estudyante, dalawa yung sinagot niya, yung number of hours slept niya, at saka yung mood niya ngayon, kinabukasan, okay? So kunyari, kagabi, 5 hours siya nakatulog, ito yung rate niya dun sa mood niya. So, parang hindi siya masyado masaya. Yung isa naman, 7 hours siya natulog, tapos yung mood niya, 4. Yung isa ay 8 hours siyang natulog, tapos ang mood niya, ang rating niya sa mood niya ay 7. And then we have 6. 2 lang din yung mood niya. And then another one na 6 yung hours of sleep, 3 yung mood niya. And then yung isa, 10 hours of sleep, and then yung mood niya ay 6. Okay? So, yan yung nilagay na natin. This one is the independent variable, the number of hours slept, at yung mood niya ay dependent variable. Titingnan natin kung may relationship yung numbers of hours slept at saka yung mood. Now, ang una nga, sabi natin, the first step in analyzing this is doing a scatter diagram or scatter plot. Looking at the scatter diagrams gives you a rough idea of the relationship between the two variables. But it's not a very precise approach. So, pag nakakita ka na ganun, sasabihin mo, oh, there is a relationship between the number of hours. Hindi pwede. So, what you need is a number that gives the exact correlation in terms of its direction and strength. Kasi kapag meron kang computation, sinasabi niya kung positive yung correlation, kung negative yung correlation, if there is no correlation, and then yung strength, kung gaano kalakas. Okay, kung meron man siyang correlation, the numbers would define the strength kung malakas o hindi malakas yung correlation between x and y variable. Okay, so in this particular slide, I am showing you yung mga mathematical model na kailangan para sa computation ng correlational coefficient or yung Pearson R natin. So, dito sa first column, you can see na andito yung X. Okay, so ayan yung numbers of R's left. Ito yung X variable natin, at saka yung mood na Y variable. We also have another main column which is the cross product ng Z-scores. Kasi kukunin natin yung Z-score. So, dun sa ilalim ng number of hours left, we have the values of X, yung number of hours left na binigay ng 6 na estudyante. And then, doon sa ilalim nun, we need to compute for the total. And then, the M here stands for the mean. Okay, mean or average nitong values na to. And then, for this next column, yung bawat value na to ay ima-minus natin dun sa mean. We will do that later. And then, whatever the answer here, i-square natin. So, ang tawag dun ay deviation squared. Whatever the value here, we need to square it. We need to find the total. And then, get the variance. And then, kukunin natin yung standard deviation. And from there, we can get the Z-score. So, we will convert this into Z-score. Same thing with the Y o yung mood natin, yung Y variable. Andito na yung mga values nung mood rating. We will get the total. We will get the mean or the average. We will subtract each value with the mean para dito. We will square the value of this para dun sa division squared. We will get the total. We will get the variance and then the standard deviation. And then we will convert the values into Z-score. Lastly, we need to multiply yung dalawang Z-score, yung Z ng X at saka ng Z ng Y to get that. And then we will get the total. And then finally, we will get the R or the Pearson R coefficient. That's how it is. So, we will do this in Microsoft Excel kasi mas madaling mag-compute doon. And this is especially para dun sa mga students ng IT or ComSci na gumagawa ng sarili nilang program or analysis or correlational analysis sa kanilang data. We are now here in Microsoft Excel so that we can start computing. On this left side, we have the table that we got from the previous slide, and then this one, yung raw data. And I would like to remind everybody that the sample size n is equal to 6 because we have 6 pairs of raw information. So, ito na yon. Number of hours sleep, ito yung X variable natin at saka ito yung Y. So, what do we do? So, starting from the X values, we need to get the sum. So, the formula for getting the total is equal to sum, open parenthesis, highlight the data, close parenthesis, and then enter. So we have a 42. So all of this is equal to 42. And M stands for the mean. So the formula for that is equal to this one para masundan yung gumagawa ng program. So yung sum nito, sum of x's divided by yung n natin, which is 6. Okay, so divided by 6. And that's 7. So, ang average value nito ay 7. Now, pag naman dito, ang gagawin nyo, susundin nyo para makagawa kayo ng maayos na codes ay, ang formula ay equals. So, ang gagawin mo ay itong value na x sub 1, minus mo dyan yung value nitong mean natin. So, ang gagawin mo dito sa mean para maging consistent siya, lagyan natin ng $sign before and after the letter G. Ganyan yung formula. And we have 2. So, as usual, di ba, kaya shortcut si Excel, we can do that for all these values. And so we have negative 2, 0, 1, negative 1, and 3. Then the next column is i-square natin yung value na to. So we can just use this to click on this, and then multiplication sign, and then click on this as well kasi multiply to itself, and then enter. And then you can just again drag para makuha na din lahat yung mabilis. Now this one is the total, so just use the formula sum, open parenthesis, at saka highlight the data, close parenthesis, and then enter. Now yung variance is simply equal natin. So this one, yung sagot natin, i-divide lang ng n na sample size. So we have this. And then the standard deviation, usually we just need the 2 decimal places pagka ganyan sa variance. So inaayos natin. And then the standard deviation is just the square root of this value. So equals square root this one, double click, and that number, and there. Ang variance ay 2 decimal place lang din because that's the standard. Ayan. So yan. Now how do you convert yung C-scores? Okay, so what you do is you just so to convert the values of X to C-score, what you do is you do this formula. So equals, click on this, divided by the standard deviation. So dahil lahat yan ay sa standard deviation, we do the thing na ginawa natin dito kanina. Kasi consistent na ay 13 dapat. So lagyan natin ng dollar sign. And then enter. So we have this. 2 decimal places lang lagi. And then, yan. So that's basically yung magiging Z-score. So we process the same para dun sa Y. So we get the total. Highlight the values. Okay, and then get the mean. So that would be that 24 divided by 6. So we have 4 as the mean for this. And then para dito, i-subtract natin yung mga Y values natin dun sa nakuha natin na mean. So that's, click on that, and then minus. So ulit, dollar sign natin, diba? So click, okay. No. So click muna natin pala, bago natin lagyan siya ng dollar sign. Sorry for that. There. Tapos enter. And then, oops. Yun, drag ulit pababa to get the values. And then, again, you multiply this one to itself. And then, yep, we drag this. Okay. Get the total. Divide it by 6. Let's make it 2 decimal places again. And then we get the standard deviation by getting the square root. This one of this number. There. Let's make it 2 decimal places again. And then converting it to Z-score, that would be equals dy minus m thing, this one. divided by the standard deviation. So we will again put $sign para laging M13 yung magiging divisor simula hanggang ibaba. Let's make it 2 decimal. And then there. Ayun. Tapos, ang susunod na gagawin natin, kunin natin yung product. Okay, this product. So, all you need to do is i-multiply mo tong madali naman yan eh. Click lang yan eh. Click mo to, tapos multiplication sign, and then this one. And enter. So, let's just make everything 2 decimal places. Yan. And then, let's just get the total. This one. And, finally, to get R, lagyan natin dito R equals. Dulo natin. Para alam natin na yun yung kinu-compute natin. Equals this divided by 6. Kasi 6 yung data natin. And that is your correlation coefficient. 0.85. This gives us a bit strong correlation dun sa number of hours left at saka yung happy mood. So, may strong correlation yung dalawang variables natin. So, there. I hope you learned something about finding the Pearson R correlation coefficient, and you can process your coding using my student. I asked them to do this in C#. So, thank you very much for watching, and God bless.